Halo Infinite's Tenrai event is almost fully wrapped up, and I wanted to give my thoughts on it. I only recently began playing Halo Infinite again after a 6 or month so break, and my initial impressions are fairly positive, and I do think the potential of the live event concept is being taken advantage of, more than say when the game launched, where the gameplay experience wasn't really connected to the theme of each event. Since Tenrai is feudal Japan themed, the event pass, of course, sported cosmetics for the samurai armor core, which isn't really new, this is how the events have always worked. But the special playlist for it kind of is what I was hoping for when the very first Tenrai happened shortly after the game's launch. The mode for the event was grappling hook, swords, and plasma grenades, which I guess acted as stand-ins for a throwing knife, and Forge was used to make these really impressive samurai-themed maps. Some of the maps I believe are original, but others are rather cool makeovers to Halo's maps from previous games. It took me a solid second to recognize that I was running around Skyline, one of Halo 4's best maps, in my opinion, or the Pit from Halo 3, an obvious community classic. Also, there's the Rig from Halo 5. I know folks aren't too fond of sword-only playlists, and I felt like I wasn't either, to be honest. I did the whole event pass with my wife, and we have our PCs actually set up next to each other, so there was a bit of a social split-screen Halo experience going on, us both sharing techniques to each other during gameplay, noticing interesting details, as well as me teaching her the best ways to use the grappling hook. And by the end of our time, we actually got pretty good at parrying attacks with the energy sword and sticking foes with our plasma grenades. The game really changed, though, when she suggested not jumping, since it sort of locks your movement in one direction in the air. And sure enough, staying on the ground and letting the enemy bounce around always guaranteed that we won our sword duels. I walked away from the Tenrai event feeling really positive about my gameplay experience. It was a fun samurai playlist, and it does actually make me interested in future Halo Infinite events if they're going to get the same level of care that Tenrai did this time around. I also took the time to read the story shard for the event. Look, I've had my criticisms about these story shards in the past, especially the ones themed around non-canon stories that felt, at least to me, like reading material that didn't really move the needle for the Halo series. Sort of like, I don't know, fan fiction more than real Halo stories, and something that ultimately wasn't worth anyone reading. With that in mind, I really liked how who I can only assume actually writing these is Haruspis over at 343 handled this story shard. The framing device is an elite protecting a human girl in a war-torn city after the fall of the Covenant. The elite is retelling the Halo Legends story to her, the duel. Only when he gets to the end of the duel, which is tragic in the original story, he recognizes how different the Halo universe is now that the Covenant had fallen. He and the girl make a new ending, one about forgiveness despite mistakes made, which mirrors the elite's new place alongside humanity as allied species. Halo Infinite's new story shard is a fantastic way of handling non-canon stories. These are stories themselves within the Halo universe that help flesh out our own understanding of Halo while telling a non-canon story. It's ultimately great writing. I really enjoyed reading this thing. If I did have to make any improvements, I would like to see something like an epilogue playlist after the event is over, port as many of the event-themed maps as possible into 4v4 Slayer or King of the Hill or something as a limited-time playlist. Even if it's only 2 or so maps, I think it could work, because maps like Skyline do work in the 4v4 format, and I'd imagine after a week of sword fighting on these maps, finally getting to have gunfights on them before they go away would be a lot of fun. Also, if I did have to make any changes or improvements, it would be that Halo Infinite still uses emblems to pad out its passes and bundles. Rather than you unlocking an emblem and being able to apply it to whatever you'd like, guns, your armor, your vehicles, or even your own nameplate, they're still making you unlock the same emblem over and over for every aspect of the customization. It still doesn't feel good, and it makes the 10-tier free battle pass feel closer to something like actually having 6 tiers. I'd imagine the business team would rather limit the amount of freebies the community can get, so emblem unlocks continue to be used as bloat slots despite community feedback, and that's something I unfortunately don't see changing during Halo Infinite's lifespan, because if they haven't stopped doing that by now, I don't think they ever will. So yeah, there's some criticisms I have, mainly with the business side of things, but in the actual event side of things, I'm happy to see Halo Infinite exploring ways to improve and lean into what an event should be. I really enjoyed my time with it, and I enjoyed the fantasy that the new Forge maps added to the event. But a question I have is, can this be pushed further? What are ways Halo Infinite can further improve their events? I'd love to hear some ideas in the comments section. One idea that entered my head as I wrote this is making events have twin playlists. Just like how Halo has its 4v4 and 8v8 fans, why not offer 4v4 and 8v8 themed playlists per event? It would definitely help add variety to the experience each event could bring. I'll leave that to start some interesting discussions, and I'll be reading what you guys have to say. And with that being said, I'll see you all in the next video.